Hi! Today we shall review Bloodhounds, a Korean action drama produced by Netflix. I will rank it at the end. I'll keep it spoiler-free for the most part. The story to this show begins simply but unwinds into a remarkably complex narrative. When I try and put it into a quick and plain synopsis, it's just not easy. But here's an attempt. At the peak of the COVID era, two very gifted pugilists are left without opportunities to pursue their talents, their craft. Tournaments are cancelled, the Olympic event postponed. But upon meeting each other in a qualification tournament, like the last of them, our two protagonists become great friends. Quick digression, throughout this review I will be trying to spell out Korean names. I may fail, please forgive me. Ginwoo, the absolute saint with a godly moral compass and unshakable sense of duty, who works hard and trains harder. Woo Jin, the overexcited marine enthusiast with a godly loyalty and a heart of gold, who lives by his gut and trains enough to be number 2. It just is what it is, only one guy can ever be that guy. But as wingmans go, Woo Jin excels at it. Anyway, this very Woo Jin has the idea of being a bloodhound, which is someone who collects debt money for private enterprises, let's call them. Gyeon-woo is very uncomfortable by the idea, but when his mother gets involved with a loan shark and ends up owning a ridiculous amount of money, he takes a more indirect role of being a bodyguard to Hyun-ju, a very disagreeable tomboy with a powerful sense of justice and a stupid amount of courage. We love her. She's adamant in taking down a gigantic loan sharking enterprise, the white whale of loan sharks, and the very same party responsible for Gyeon-woo's mother situation. And also, they're taking over all other loan businesses while also doing some shenanigans with homeless people. It's actually very clever how these businesses are portrayed, legal and illegal. They go to great detail in terms of what their practices are, what their operations are, and how they conduct their business. Dramatics ensue, and I promise that is hardly the start of it. If you're visualizing these three eventually fighting together against one mega villain and his army of goons for all of the marbles, well, that does kind of happen at the end of the second act. It's quite the tragedy. Because it's a TV show, the main authors responsible for every part of the overall productions are hard to discern, unless we're going episode by episode, except for the acting, of course. So, we'll hit the different aspects of production as best as I can, but this is going to be a lot less structured than when I review a movie. So, on the music and the sound. Suffice it to say, I didn't notice anything particular about the score, which means it at least did its job. Nothing memorable, nothing that got in the way. Costumes and set design, I would like to give a shout out, as everyone of note feels pretty distinct with their own style, and every location is easy for me to visualize and remember, even now months later, from a simple house interior to the fantastic site of an abandoned mall. It's actually impressive in that regard. I have less memory for actual fantasy series like The Witcher and its set pieces and its locations than I do for this completely urban, realistic show with normal clothings and costumes and styles. It's just weird that it's so memorable, so definitely a shout out to those guys. Everyone responsible. Grade A work. On the direction. Let's be brief and say that it was competent, if a bit soap opera-y in the way it puts scenes together. What I mean by that is that the passage of time is hard to follow sometimes, and also, because of that, the emotional state of the characters between scenes. I think the direction is elevated by the acting talent and the stunt crews, but I can't know for sure. Maybe the direction has a great impact on those. Speaking on the stunt crews, and vis-a-vis speaking on action, let's get into it. This is where the structure is going to get a bit haywire, a bit flimsy. So bear with me, please, and try and keep up. The choreography is excellent, which, to be honest, was the selling point for me and what I most enjoyed in this show. It's all I wanted every episode. More fights. The fight choreographies keep themselves fresh and interesting and so fun to watch. There's knife fights that are stomach curling, but the fist fights are the definition of catharsis. With boxing being the theme behind the entire show and all the action, it sure was focused on and explored to the absolute limit. I imagine a lot of the audience will for sure start googling boxing rings after watching this show. It's that good. They've got a Rocky training montage that lasts half an episode and has a bit of character development and narrative progression built into it. Loved it. 3 thugs that just get hired to rough up the elderly suddenly getting punched by an Olympic-level pugilist at the top of his game. This happens a million times and I swear it never gets old. The shock, the daze, the AoE stun effect it produces on nearby goons. It's satisfying every single time. Progression! Our protagonists get stronger and stronger, and that's most directly identified by this guy. He is a bare-knuckle strongest fighter in the bad guy's side. He wipes the floor with Yeon-woo the first time. They encounter each other throughout the show, and every time we see how this guy stays stagnant, relying on his weight and mass, while our protagonists train and level up. Speaking of which, the villains. The villains of this show, and there are quite a few, are phenomenally competent and balls to the wall whatever it takes to win cruel. Near the very start, one of the henchmen recognizes Yeon-woo, that's Captain Korea by the way, from an early altercation they had, and without hesitation, promptly calls a hit on his mom. This is like episode 3. These guys lay down traps that all but demonstrate the inexperience and naivete of our protagonists several times. We get to see the protagonists being ambushed and pushed to the brink of tragedy and death. Things get so grim at one point that I don't even know how they can possibly go on, willpower-wise. The villains and their resources seem daunting and impossible to overcome. Truly, it feels that way. But our boys refuse to renege on their sense of duty and proceed as true brothers in arms. They support each other through every scenario and challenge. How can I not love this? My word, the masculine urge to walk up against the world with your broski and punch its lights out. Unmatched. The plot. What I told you about the story pales in comparison to the intrigue and drama that unfolds, and the many moving parts webbing together the entire tapestry of this narrative. The story involves high-level organized crime, corrupt police and secret police operations, hacking, many levels of blackmail, politics, retired assassins, working assassins, a random Olympic archer it looked like. I don't know if Olympic, but she shot like it. It weaves a narrative that moves at a quick pace and keeps itself interesting by mixing together tragedy and triumph in actively competing amounts. They are also not pulling punches at any time. These days fans watch out because Bloodhounds kills motherfuckers. Then their wives and their kids. It's actually crazy in a refreshing type of way to see a show so willing to use the supporting cast so ultimately. It makes stakes truly real and the villains real threats. Alright, let's move to a bit of a more structured part, the performances. Again, please forgive any bad spelling of names, I am doing my best. Park Sung-won plays the titular bad guy Myung-gil, and I hated this character more than I've ever hated Joffrey from Game of Thrones. This guy is such a real gangster who cares not a lick for the lives of completely good people, and lives his life confidently brute-forcing his way through every situation, and winning. This is the stay winning no matter what lad, which makes it so interesting when things start going awry. So, this is to say, he was amazing. Well written and very well acted. Everyone's performance here is pretty good, I'll criticize soon enough, but this guy and Yeon-ju stood out from the supporting cast as true talents capable of becoming the focal points in their scenes. Our two protagonists, portrayed by Woo Do-won and Lee Sang-hee, were so good in all the big emotional moments, but also had pretty good chemistry, building up their relationship from awkward friendship into undying fraternity without ever losing sight of each of their assigned archetypes, which were played a bit too up, in my opinion. Which brings me to my criticism of performances. Ha Jun-hoo plays President Choi Tae-ho, who is the most benevolent, most altruistic moneylender who has ever existed in any multiverse, and was also a super feared gang leader employing a mythical pack of knife murderers. Yeah, he's the centerpiece of all my criticism, to be honest. I can easily predict that most of your suspension of disbelief will be spent on this character. The best thing I can say about him is that they bring it on slowly, and the good parts of him, which interweave with the narrative and drama, still hit with me personally. When stuff happens, I still felt for him and his adopted daughter, Yeon-ju, but, like I said, it really is unbelievable how benevolent he's supposed to be. You'll get it when you watch it, because as it starts going, you'll think I'm being way too harsh, and that's what I mean by they bring it on slowly. By the end of the show, you'll agree with me that there's quite a bit of ridiculousness to his character. As well, the show reaches a level of stakes that will have you very suspicious of the lack of guns. Because I consume a lot of Eastern media, this didn't seem super off to me, personally, but if your diet is generally provided by Hollywood, this is where you'll spend whatever suspension of disbelief you have left, on the lack of fire weapons. Fine by me though, because I get that the main purpose of this show is to have boxers boxing. Lastly, the exaggerated archetypal nature of our two protagonists need the same kind of acceptance that you would need with cartoon characters. Complex, well-written cartoon characters. But still, the quiet yet earnest, selfless hero and the loud yet loyal troublemaker with a good heart. While they're not two-dimensional per se, they're certainly not as three-dimensional as many of the other characters in the show. I was fine with it, that's kind of my jam. But if you're wanting our protagonists to struggle with questionable morals or act on bad motivations that they later regret, that kind of failing? None of it happens. Their failings are outside the realms of morality, of the soul, and thus, so is their growth and personality. All limitations are limited to the mains of boxing skill and their overall experience in navigating the world of white-collar crime and the low-level thuggery that it employs to enforce its shenanigans. So, to double-tap the statement, because it was a long one, as is my proclivity, the characters grow as far as becoming better at pugilism and understanding gangster business, being bloodhounds, but they don't grow in terms of character. One final shot, our protagonist's mother is a pretty weak character, all in all, but it was just written like that. I don't put it on the actress in the slightest. Still, considering how important it is to the plot, it really gets no use. And I mean, you will be surprised at how irrelevant the mother is. No words of wisdom, catchy moral lessons, nothing. She gets scammed and hurt a lot and cries a bit, pulls at the heartstrings, but mostly just hides for most of the show. Badly written part, to be honest. She should be your Uncle Ben or something, the provider of a guiding philosophy, the emotional backbone, the moral anchor, something. But she's nothing other than, I guess, what would happen in real life. My mom's in danger, just shove her somewhere in secret so that she doesn't get hurt. And I guess that's it. So, yeah. I mean, speaking of that's it. I had a really good time with this show. All I wanted was good action, and I got it. But I also got pretty invested in the narrative, and I still think about a few moments sometimes when I'm introspecting about the right thing to do in a scenario, or how I would react if I lost a particular person in my life. I found the gangster plot super interesting to follow, well thought out. So, let's rank Bloodhounds. The way we rank movies here is on a grade scale, optionally with a subgrade. Same way we can have a B or a B+. From great to bad it goes must rewatch, which would be an S, must watch, can rewatch, can watch, should not rewatch, should not watch, do not rewatch, and do not watch, which I call the trash grade. I rank the Bloodhounds as a can rewatch, if you like fights. So B+. If you're not into action set pieces or boxing, then maybe save it for when a friend or partner of yours might find it opportune to watch it with you. If you like fights, do give it a shot. I trust you'll enjoy it, and then you can confidently get your friend or partner to watch it, because you'll enjoy it again easily. From either side, this is the kind of recommendation that's the best, because it's free of expectations and kind of out of nowhere, which is why, coincidentally, I decided to bring it up. So yeah, thanks for watching my video. If you decide to give it a chance in place of whatever slop the algorithm wants to feed you next, I hope you like it. Thank you for watching. KuzCopia signing out. Bye.